Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Senor Nerd Podcast. I have here with me Ramon,
Hey guys.
Raul,
Howdy, howdy.
and we're here to talk about a show that was recommended by one of us, and that person was Raul. And Raul, we asked you to pick any anime, any TV show, any movie that has ever existed, and you came back and you said, I want to talk about Crybaby, Devilman Crybaby 2018. And that's what we're here for. Today, we are here to discuss Devilman Crybaby 2018 that you currently can find on Netflix. And I'm very excited actually to talk about this specifically because, Ramon, you have never seen this anime, and I'm really, really curious to hear your thoughts on it. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton to you, my friend, so that you can start telling us everything that you thought about this anime because, again, you're coming in from a fresh perspective. So go, start running with it.
All right, let's go. And then I trip. Damn. Okay. So, all right.
Drop the baton.
Then I dropped the baton. Man, so absolutely did not expect this anime, right? When you guys recommended it, I think everybody saw it way before me. I think I was telling people around like what I was gonna watch this time for the next episode, and everybody gave me this weird face, like, really? And then I just kind of okay, well, we'll just go see what we get into. So. I'm not gonna say I love it. I'm not gonna say I'm pro it, but I definitely am excited to talk about it. I honestly think that this anime to me was if someone who had just finished watching Evangelion basically was disappointed that there was not enough like perviness and took some Molly. So perviness and then took some Molly and then started drawing. This is what this is. So right, it's just it's a little lewd, a little crazy in the beginning, and by the end it does have a decent story. But again, a lot of comparisons to other animes, and yeah, again, really excited to kind of break it down, and more importantly, excited to see what Raul thinks about it. So
No, definitely pass that baton to Raul now because Raul, this is a chance for you to say why you kind of, and I'm even curious to know why you chose this show. So, like, come on, man, hit us with it. What's the reason behind it?
So when I started my anime journey during the pandemic of kind of trying to watch everything that I had missed because I kind of took a break from anime. Um, Tony was the one that suggested this anime to me, and I was like, "You should
Blame
watch
Tony.
this."
yeah, he
Yeah,
can't defend himself, but okay.
I can find the text somewhere probably too. So then he suggested it. I was like, okay, I'll try it. And then like I saw the first episode and I was like, what the fuck am I watching? There was like so much. It was. I thought it was like, is it like hentai or like what is this?
Yeah.
Because there was like just so much like nudity, so much sex, and so much. And by the way, trigger warning on this show. Like there's gonna be every type of like fucked up shit that happens in this, and I'm probably gonna cuss a lot. So just a warning ahead of time.
I think this whole episode needs to be rated like R XXX or something like weird.
NC-17.
Yeah, maybe
Definitely.
21.
If anybody watches this and it's like, what are they talking about? Like, I've never heard of this show. Definitely, when you go watch it, be very careful who you're watching it around
No
because
kids.
even anime is like done these tropes where it's like nudity or like a little bit perviness. This kind of like raises the perviness to like level like 15. So it's kind of a little bit crazy when it comes to that. I know when I started watching a role, my wife only saw the beginning episode of it, the first episode, and she's like, "Oh, this looks like an anime that I would want to sit and watch with you." And I'm like, "No, you don't, and please get out of the room because if you don't get out, like I'm gonna like stop it, and because I cannot have you watch this." Um,
You're too
dude,
young for this.
no, dude, it's just like I've been caught in situations before where I could explain myself out of situations that happen on in certain animes, but for this one, it's like how do I even say it? Like, like I'm legitimately feel like I'm watching the Ring video. That's like, oh, I found this, let me watch it, and if I don't watch all of it and pass it to the next person, I will die in the next 7 days.
Dude, I think you hit a funny spot too, right? Because like every time that like I think I started talking about like anime around Kiara and everything, like and other people too, just who don't watch anime regularly, or I'm like, hey, we do like this podcast and we talk about anime quite a bit, right? Like don't be turned off by it, but something that's pretty interesting. And I think that's part of the misconception, right? That a lot of anime can tend to lean that way, where it gets a little pervy, it gets a little crazy. So yeah, for that reason, this anime is not the one if you're trying to prove your point for anime and you're trying to prove that there is like great stuff out there. Again, some good things about it, but definitely on the more risque part part of
No,
that
like
whole world.
like I mentioned today, I met somebody that were like, they're like, oh, my favorite anime is Death Note. So it's like, okay, just based on you telling me that they had not seen Evangelion, so I would say like, hey, go watch Evangelion if you like Death Note because it's very depressing and a lot of murdering happening. And I would say if that person came back to me and said Evangelion, and then they asked me like, hey, I saw this anime called Devilman Crybaby, should I watch that? I would say, okay, you saw that note, you saw Evangelion, so yes, I give you the okay to watch this because I think you'll be ready for it. But you're totally right, Ramon. If you are not ready for this kind of anime, it's gonna 100% turn you off on the first episode because you're gonna get the worst impression of it.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
worst
so
impression of us is though, again, like it, but it's we're watching it critically, so we can actually give you a good
yeah,
episode about it. But it's not, it's
yeah. So I'll get into why I chose this show, this anime. So when I did watch it, from when Tony told me, like that was my first impression. I was like, what the fuck is this? So then, but like I just kind of like I kept watching, and then I kind of understood kind of what they were going for, and I don't know, I'm a big fan of things that have deeper meanings, and like whether the way that they come across explaining it is sometimes it's obviously going to be different depending on what they're doing or whatever. But I liked how many things that this was describing, and then kind of how they were showing it, and then just the fact that I don't know. It was so out there, and it was honestly kind of like fucked up and crazy, and it didn't follow like any of the rules that you would expect from an anime. Like you have like a ton of actual like explicit like sex and nudity happening, like right off the bat, pretty much, and then you have the brutal like killing of the demons and other stuff, and then
the
and then
drugs.
yeah, and then you get the like inkling that there's some like fucked up shit happening, not just the death, but like maybe some like like possibly sexual assaults, possibly like all these other fucked up things.
Well,
So like
I don't think it's possibly. I mean, I think the show
no,
even makes it a point to say a lot of this shit is happening, and there's no
yeah,
imagination of whether it did or not. It just and it's not one of those things like we're choosing not to show you. Like they show you everything that they could show you, and just
yeah,
to like kind of like back up like some of the things you said, Ro. Like I'm looking it up right now, like the rating on this show for like certain things, and most of them it's actually like a 7.6 on IMDb. It's an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. This has a 7.8 on my anime list out of like almost half a million voters. So it's like that's actually like a very respectable score. So it just shows you that overall, like people probably do watch this show and did find something to relate to it or did enjoy certain aspects of it.
yeah, because it's shining kind of like a light on other like fucked up things on society, because like all these things do exist, and then especially like the big thing too that it kind of spotlights is the like how irrational people are when they get scared, and then like how much they can become like fanatics, or it's kind of like the witch trials that they had.
Yeah.
Like the exact same thing happened, and then it shows like fucked up people, and then they get corrupted or whatever,
And
or taken over by demons, and then kind of like by the end, like people are the fucking demons.
no, and you know what? Something we should start doing is just introducing some of these characters, some of these plot lines.
Yeah,
And Ramon, maybe do that for us. But before you do, I kind of wanted to ask you something. Like, you've lived with Raul in the past, like you guys were roommates, you have a clear relationship. And I just kind of want to ask you real quick, should I ever allow Raul to step foot in my house ever again after watching this anime? Because he clearly recommended it. And sure, he's blaming Tony. And I do believe that Tony recommended it to you because that dude has a little bit of a sick mind. He once told me to like, hey, follow this YouTube channel, which is nothing but animals eating other animals. And I'm like, that's when I started kind of having my doubts about Tony. So
Well, let me start by saying Raul's a great dude, and actually, I will live with him again. So, Raul, if you ever need roommates, me and my wife and my dog will be happy to have you. So just come right over. No, I mean,
if I ever need a couch, I'll let you
yeah,
know.
it's that. See, there you go. You don't need a couch, man. We got all this extra room over here. We got a whole spare bedroom. But no, I mean, but funny enough though, it does kind of again not going straight through the lewd and the crazy like explicit like material, but I think it does kind of make sense with Raul and kind of like me too, because I think when we lived together, we were watching a lot of crazy stuff. Like we were really about like TV and movies that kind of made you think, TV that was like really radical. Like we watched a lot of Dexter, and I know it wasn't like crazy radical in a sense because it wasn't gruesome, but the whole show had to do with like serial killers and murders and how to get away with murders. So I think, you know, it really does go hand in hand. And you know what? Again, it's not like I'm sitting here saying like I hated this anime, it doesn't have anything good. It did take me a second to kind of get there, you know, right? Like I started watching the first couple episodes and I was like, oh man, like this is definitely something. Like I wish I was on drugs right now. Like pass the Molly, let's go, my turn. Like, you know, I want to be part of this fun. But and you know what? And I was kind of skeptical for a little bit. Like I kind of already got the story right away, what was gonna happen in a sense of like all the demons and all that whole thing, right? So I was intrigued. But then I think I want to say like maybe like halfway through, I started seeing the bigger picture and how it really kind of like really made that first half like work, because like Raul said, it was meant to be like crazy. It was meant to be like very explicit. It was meant to really kind of show humans and or like people like us as humans just being like at the most like I guess following again trying to get their vices, like anything they wanted, like sex, drugs, like I don't know if there was crime in there, but I'm sure there was, because again you were having a rave, that's illegal, don't call the cops. But yeah, I mean, so it's like it made sense. So by the time we got to that second half, I definitely see where Raul was going. I'm excited to talk about that part because there's a lot of great comparisons to that. But yeah, I mean, like right off the back, I think you get kind of pulled into the story because the like the beginning part, it's with two boys, right? Like we have Akira and Ryo, and it's just more of this relationship between like two young dudes who are, you could tell they're either going to become life friends or they're going to become enemies. Which in this case it becomes kind of both. But you know, and you even have like the first like kind of not even graphic scene, but that first scene of like they have the little kitten, and I think Akira is trying to be like, oh, like trying to save it, and it's pretty beat up, and Rio's like, no, leave it behind, like, you know, it's gonna die anyways. Yeah. And so like I think that was a great way to start this anime in general, at least having like the first grounded point that it made you think, even though there's going to be like freaking nudity, sex, drugs, it has a deeper topic. And that was all about like compassion and do you need love if it causes so much pain? So that's a great part of this.
No, that's great. I love how you just explained that relationships between both of them. And you know, this is an anime that I had seen before. I think I saw it when it did come out. I was very excited for it. For me, I think when I first saw it, as soon as I was done with it, I sort of forgot about it, bro. That might have been just because maybe a lot of the shit that I saw was just so graphic that in my brain it's like, I need to just forget about this so that I can live my life as normal. So even when I started doing my rewatch, it kind of all started coming back to me. It almost felt like, oh shit, this was like a bad memory I had forgotten, and all of a sudden, like everything's coming back. Like the first episode to me was like, whoa, like that was something completely like else that, you know, I don't think any anime has ever done for me. And that's immediately what I texted you guys. Like this episode was more different than I imagined it would be. And again, I had seen it, but it was just so crazy and insane. And what was being portrayed on screen, I don't think anybody should be allowed to watch it more than maybe once, twice, or maybe even three times in their lives, because again, it's just so graphic. But I think the problem with this show is that by the time I'm done with it, even though I just rewatched it and I even watched a little bit more episodes today with Ramon, like I'm already ready to forget about it. Like as soon as I was done with it, I enjoyed the animation. I love the music about it. I love some of the characters. I love Devilman, the way he looked. But now that I'm done with it, I'm like, okay, go back into my memory and let's just forget about it. Let's never talk about this again. And I think part of the reason why that, as much as I could say that I binged the first few episodes, it's just like at the end of it, like I don't feel like I relate to anybody. I don't think I relate to Akira. I don't think I relate to Ryo. I don't think I relate to like just any of the characters. And even the way that some of their storylines ends, it just makes it a little bit more sad and depressed and upset that they didn't get a little bit more love, or there wasn't, I guess, that necessarily happy ending. And you know, I'm used to stuff not ending happy, so I don't know why specifically for this show, just like not having that happy end, it kind of didn't make me satisfied at all. And it just maybe could be because Rio, at the end of the day, he's kind of like a trash kind of like person to follow. So that was kind of like where I feel about this show. It's just like I watched it once. Here I am doing a rewatch. I'm recording on it. I'll listen to this recording again. But hopefully, there's no other point in my life where I'll feel like this is the only anime you get to watch for the rest of your life, because that would seriously like hurt my feelings if I went to hell and that's what Satan told me. It would be like such a disappointment.
No, yeah, and I totally get that. But like, I think the big thing too with all the characters is I think that they're all exaggerations of people. Like Akira, he's like an exaggeration of like an empathetic person, of like a good guy or whatever, that one that does like bad things for like for good reasons or whatever, for like the good of society or whatever, which is why he's going around killing demons. With Miki, she's like that nice girl that's kind of like popular and super ambitious, and she's always good at everything.
And I like Mickey. I like Mickey a
Yeah,
lot, and that's probably where it hurts me at the end. And it should be like, something for me to escalate this show to another level. But I think just the fact that like it was technically, I blame Akira for her passing away, and then maybe if her death had been a little bit more different, I would have been like, oh yeah, that was well deserved. But it's just like the way she died at the end, I was just so sad about it, bro. Like it really, it's almost like that situation when they kill Glenn. Like I'm like, you killed her. Now I'm done with you, and I don't want to see any more of you, and I want to forget about you.
yeah, no, yeah, and that's also the thing that I love about like shows or whatever. Like I love shows or things that make me feel things. Like this show, like made me like disgusted, made me angry, made me like impressed, and made me like I don't know, like pretty much everything. Like made me fucking sad as hell. Like with Mickey's dad with the kid and the wife. Dude,
Oh
that
yeah.
fucking killed me when I saw that, and or it surprised me too, like in good and bad ways. Sometimes it was corny, like when kind of towards the end when like Akira
Rio?
was already
Oh.
the Devilman, and they had the people like up on the stakes and throwing rocks, and then he was just talking and started crying, and then the kid showed up. I was like, oh, that's corny as hell.
I told Ramon,
Um,
Yeah.
it's funny you say
Yeah.
that because I told that to Ramon. Like, I'm like, I would not believe that the kids would react and the parents would let the kids all of a sudden
no,
hug this Devilman. Like, yeah, totally
I
agree
no,
with
just
you.
yeah,
didn't. I just didn't believe they got in a single file line to hug them. I would have done a group hug. More time efficient. It would have made more sense. Come on, man.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
but
yeah. It was corny and kind of like, eh.
and Raul, obviously, yeah, absolutely. Like to kind of like talk more positive about it before I get to like my reasons why I don't particularly care for it in a bigger scheme. It's like, I mean, I think you're right. Like definitely I think attaching emotions to every character is like super huge because Akira being like, compassion and like empathy, and then even like Miki being like more innocence, right? Because she never truly
Yeah,
did anything bad at all. Like, and then like you said, Carlos, she freaking died in a way that you're like, wait, what? Like she didn't deserve to die like that at all. Like she never stood a chance. She never like, besides being taken over by that demon and like in the beginning when the whole like bath scene, like nothing truly happened that kind of made her seem like she deserved it. And then of course you have Rio, who's obviously more like the seat, and then ultimately kind of that like misguided benevolence where you think you're doing it for good and it's ultimately just bad. I think that's
Nico with
really,
envy.
yeah, it's exactly that too, because like it's, at one point it kind of gets more about like, oh, like humans don't deserve to be the ones that are alive, like us demons are the ones that
Yeah,
truly belong here. Obviously once you find out, I don't know if we're there to say that part of it, but obviously find out he's Satan. You know where his anger comes from, right? Because he was banished, and so at that point he has like a point to prove. And then not only that, there was a point where the god or a god in the show still like beat him up again and destroyed him, like when he kind of like dropped a little meteor or like sky meteors and destroyed all the demon dinosaurs and stuff like that. So like of course like all these like emotions, all these like characters like are really grounded and very, not necessarily exaggerated, but definitely very like obvious like metaphors, but it works. So I think for like what it does, it works. Before I forget, I really wanted to make this comparison, but I remember when I was like, after I got past like the first couple episodes of like, after getting done with like the club scenes, like the sex and all that crazy stuff. And then Carlos, like we were discussing it a little bit later, and I was just like, definitely could have done without a lot of that. But in retrospect, obviously it works. So I was thinking of the show Beef, right? Which we just talked about, Beef, like live action Netflix, more about like all these things. And they said something on the last episode. Amy and Danny were talking about how like our generation, talking about like us, right, born in the 80s, like we're like one of the reasons why like this like society right now is like so fucked when it comes to like sex and things that are on the internet. Like we are the reason why this show exists. We're the reason why in 2018 someone decided, hey, I'm gonna make super pornographic related kind of like anime just to kind of like, you know, get that like shock effect. And I think it works though, because at this point we are all desensitized to it. But again, on an anime where, you know, at one point you're not expecting it, it kind of makes it like a fun little experience. But again, yeah, once you get towards the second part, I did really enjoy a lot of the things that happened. Like once people started falling off buildings and humans started distrusting each other, I think the show really got really good to the point where I'm like, okay, everything I witnessed in the beginning, perfect, whatever. That's like any other movie that I've seen that has that shock value. And now at this point of the show, I'm invested because I'm truly want to see, you know, where it's going. Sadly, I didn't love the ending, but yeah.
No, dude, and I mean with Akira, man, I mean I like following him, but honestly, I only like following him once he turned into Devilman. Once he absorbed the devil, Amon, I liked him because in the first episode he was just so whiny, so bitchy, always
Yeah.
like crying, and I'm like, I cannot follow this character for like more than one episode because if I do, like I'm just not gonna love it. So just the idea that on the second episode he became a different person, he was more confident, stronger, he just looked so cool, that made me even kind of continue this show because again I did not love him in the beginning at all. And it's kind of interesting that you said that, Ramon. Like the whole reason why he was able to become like a Devilman is because he was just so pure-hearted. You know, everything, any kind of sad story that involved anybody else getting hurt, he would absorb that information, and he all of a sudden would start tearing up. So that's kind of sweet, you know, an idea of like this man is just so innocent in his heart that even the idea of the most powerful devil that has ever existed in hell took him over, and he can still gain control of him and become this Devilman person where he's able to like resist the urge to kill humans or do any kind of like evil things. So that's really like condemn, like I think that's really admirable from a person, you know, if there is such a person out there that would get taken over by a devil and all of a sudden he could fight those urges. And you know, going back to like Miki, I really did enjoy also, like you said, I enjoyed how sweet she was. And I was telling Ramon, like, it's just so funny. Like, she has these beautiful green eyes, and it almost for a second reminded me, like, hey, there's actually living people that have green eyes because it's been so long since I've seen a human being with green eyes that I just even forgotten that this is like something that you can actually find somebody walking around with green eyes out there in different parts of the world, or like even here where we live. So it's just kind of like all of a sudden, just something that like from her, just her eyes really told me a lot about like her personality, just the way she was, so friendly, but all around, like a lot of the characters, like I know there's the other Miki, and I told you, Ramon, even her like story I really liked a lot, even though I hated the fact that she turned into Devilman. But you know, she did become also kind of like Akira became a lot cooler for me, at least when she was in that not that she wasn't cool to begin with in the her original human form, but even when she got more confident, her hair all of a sudden is like slicked back. Like I really did like her how she portrayed herself, and I thought that was another cool storyline with the show that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it because there's like a ton of different themes kind of throughout this whole thing, because like with Miki, you have the whole thing where like you have the innocence of like she's I guess thinking the best out of the photographer dude that's just being a fucking like dirtbag, and then that whole thing, um and then like I don't that's part of the like the disturbing part of it, I guess, of the show. And then it like that's the part that kind of made me mad because like shit like that exists, and it's fucked up, and it kind of shows like that's one bad part of society, I guess. And then you have like the envious part with Miko, the other Miki that's jealous of Miki Nakamura or whatever. That she goes through like all these lengths um to try to like become better and become a better runner because she's so like jealous of the other Mickey being better than her, and kind of pretty much trying to do drugs in order to be better. And then she ends up turning into the Devilman too. And then
Right.
oh, and before I forget too, the one thing that I fucking loved about this anime is all the fucking rapping. The
Oh
Japanese
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was
rapping
so
was
great. Yeah.
fucking
So
badass.
good.
You know. And if you enjoyed that, Ramon, you would really enjoy Samurai Champloo, because Samurai Champloo
Oh
also
yeah.
kind of takes a lot of that rapping and, you know, taking the 2000s look into like a period in Japan where that stuff not even around, shouldn't be
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then I mean, yeah, looking forward to eventually seeing that one too. Before I get off that topic, but Raul, I
Put it
think
on
when
the
you
list.
when you oh yeah, my list. Oh my god, my ever growing list. When you mentioned the photographer, right? Like, I think that was one of the first parts. Like, those some of those scenes are like hard to watch because of how like pervy they get. Not even because of how like bad they are. It's just pervy, and you think he's a piece of shit, right? But I think that's exactly what towards the second half when you start seeing Ryo's plans like develop. I think that's what the show wants you to do. It makes you want to agree with him that a lot of these humans don't deserve to live,
Yeah.
right? And he's one of those that when he died, I'm like, yeah, suck it, like take it, like you know, who cares? Like you deserve to go. I don't know if his mom deserved to go, especially in the way that she did, where like Ryo basically blew her up. But other than that, you know, this show definitely does a good job in making you feel like that bad for some people. And then yeah, you saw it later too when you have like people just killing people because of their suspicions. So definitely like witch trials and stuff like that becomes to the point where it just becomes absurd, and you're like, man, you guys are so stupid. Maybe you should all die.
No, and something I was telling Ramon Ro is that this show, and you probably already knew this, but this is based on like a 1970s manga like called Devilman, and it actually was a cartoon that ran from like 1972 to 1974. And based on what I looked up on it, it looked like even back then, this was like in the 1970s, when people watched this or read the manga, they were like, "Holy crap, what am I watching? Or what am I reading? What am I watching? This seems to be like on another level that wasn't portrayed at the time." So I was kind of like even taking that idea and telling Ramon like I feel like in 2018 they read those things and said like, oh my god, like this show in the 1970s was so talked about because of how crazy it was, and there's devils and angels are actually like among us, but he's also Satan and he's trying to kill everybody. So I feel like they took those critiques and said like, okay, we got to make a show in 2018 and make it just as loud, just as violent, just as crazy, just as like much nudity and drugs and all those things around. So I feel like that's what they were going for in order to get attention to the show. And I mean, it probably did work, man. Because again, all of us are so scared to even suggest Devilman Crybaby to other people because of how violent, how crazy it is. This idea that if I recommend this show to you, you're gonna judge me. All of a sudden, Ro, you're telling me this show is your favorite show ever, and I'm like, don't come to my house, even though Ramon just said that I should let you. But we'll talk about that after the show.
I mean, so far Raul's making a great like case for this show. So you know you're good for right now, Raul. But let's wait till we're done with this
We're not, yeah.
episode. No, and then
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I know you're good. You go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna start getting into just I guess maybe some of the like the scenes that kind of like did captivate me in the very beginning, because I think it's still like that first impact is really huge. Just one of my favorite scenes right away in the beginning is like when Rio goes back to see like one scientist down in the Amazon, and he like is setting himself on fire because he doesn't want to become a demon at that point. Again, just like more imagery that I love, and again, you know, screw the perviness and the nudity and the drugs,
Yeah.
like give me people on fire, hence by my shirt right now. Give me people on the fire. Give me people like, you know, kind of like dying in crazy ways. I liked some of the devil designs. I wasn't crazy about all of them. Like I feel like with so many shows doing like demons and devils, like sometimes you get some really absurd designs, but at least the main character, right? Like freaking Devilman looks good, and I think that's all that matters. And then there's a couple ones later on too that we eventually see, well, I'm sure we'll talk about. But I don't know, man. The show's still sticking with me, and I do have like some things where I want to go with it as far as like after we start talking towards the end, because it just reminds me so much of Evangelion, and that's the reason why I wouldn't recommend the show to people. Not because I wouldn't say don't watch it. I would just say if you want to watch a better version, but also way more depressing, watch Evangelion.
No, and
And yeah,
yeah, because I don't know if we were watching together today. I sort of said that to you, Ramon, or I sort of waited to the end because you
oh
said it
yeah,
you said it naturally, but it's just like it's impossible to look at the last episode and just kind of think to yourself, were they purposely ripping off Evangelion when it came to like the Red Sea, the whole
Yeah.
idea of like Akira and Rio at the end, kind of like staring to the sky, and even just like everything about like the fight and the way things look. I think you kind of compare Rio to Ramon, in the way that Ray was sort of the key that kind of granted the one wish to that he what's the main protagonist's name, Shinji,
Shinji, yeah.
to have like this world where it would just be Asuka and him, and then they in a way became Adam and Eve. So it was just kind of like that, kind of also kind of like I didn't like that, and I don't know if maybe the original was the first one to kind of take that and maybe Evangelion was the one that took it from Devilman. But it's just kind of a little bit when you have, for me, it's one of Evangelion's like probably my favorite show of all time. I love that show so much. And for me, it feels a little bit like, oh, like why are you showing me something where Evangelion did it a lot better, in my opinion?
I mean, since we're talking about it now, like, let me just throw it in there real quick, Raul. Like, or go ahead, go ahead.
No, I'll say real quick. Uh, one thing about this, which is probably why the ending was more impactful for me than you guys. I saw this before I saw Evangelion.
Oh, okay.
That makes a lot of sense
A lot
now.
of sense. You're
A
like, damn,
lot.
Evangelion, you stole this from freaking Devilman.
No, I didn't think that. Like honestly, I didn't even like until right now. I didn't put it together because I forgot
Well,
about that
well, for Ramon, it
Evangelion.
was so obvious because his
Dude.
laptop actually has that final scene when he opens his laptop. So it's like, dude, like to Ramon, it like immediately hit him.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, but yeah, since we're here now, let's get this out of the way and then we'll come back to the show because again, so many good things to talk about. But yeah, I mean, so like I actually got that I got a very similar sense to Evangelion pretty early enough, right? You can't ignore the fact that Akira and Shinji are pretty similar because of how whiny they are, right? And I know that's not where they were gonna go with the whole character development, but of course, right? Shinji's definitely like the dude who's just like freaking whining and kind of afraid of everything, too timid to act on like girls hitting on him and trying to do stuff. And again, Akira was kind of a little different, where he eventually did take advantage of a lot of opportunities. So my vote goes to Akira overall over Shinji, but Shinji is one of my least favorite characters in
I,
general of
I,
any
I
story.
mean,
Everyone.
I mean, Shinji never had an angel like possess his body, and all of a sudden the next day he woke up, and instead of like being like 12-year-old body, it was like an 18-year-old body.
What are you talking about though? That's what I got right away. His mom in the Eva suit, right? So that when I was watching it, that's what I was thinking about, man. I was thinking about like, so in order for Shinji to power up, he basically got put into the freaking Eva, right? Once he was in the
Yeah.
Eva, it was the soul of his mom that truly powered him up. And whether it wasn't like Shinji himself physically being able to do all these crazy things through the power of the Eva, he was able to like freaking do crazy fights and basically try
Well,
to save the world.
well,
Um,
well, to me, it always felt like he all of a sudden became a better pilot, a better person, more confident. Was because he
see?
always wanted not his
Oh,
mom, but he wanted to impress his daddy. He
oh,
had
true,
daddy
true.
issues. He's like, in order for my daddy to acknowledge me, to love me, to care about me, I have to become the best, the best, the best. And that's kind of like when even Asuka started feeling like, oh shit, like all of a sudden this kid that was nobody, was shit, was garbage. I could surpass him in everything. He's surpassing me, and that's where Asuka's depression kind of came in, and all of a sudden she can't pilot her Ava, even though she's under the same circumstances where her mom's soul is potentially an Ava number two. And it's just kind of like, again, sorry, we don't mean to make this an Evangelion
We'll
conversation,
get
but
back.
it's like
We'll
I
get back.
just,
We
No,
promise.
yeah,
it's related though.
A lot,
That's the thing.
a lot. Um,
no,
It kind of makes me want to watch Evangelion again.
I
yes.
mean, you should watch the movies that we've recommended on Prime
Oh
Video,
yeah,
Raul.
I will. At some
But
point.
no, I mean, even with, I don't know what makes Evangelion stick more to me. Again, that imprinted on me when I, at a very young age. But I think even the fact that it's like 24 episodes, they feel like a little bit more stretched out. It feels like even some episodes are just like meant to be like funny or just action based. And with Devil May Cry, it never takes a break. From episode one, it's just like sprinting and continues to run, and it's trying to pass the
It's the
baton to
relay.
somebody. Yeah, it's trying to pass the baton to like somebody else, but it never gets to be able to catch up to that person. So it's just like doing an infinite loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And until I can tell you, I really couldn't ignore the fact, right? That so there was the one, right? Akira and Shinji were very similar in the beginning, and through whatever way, whether it's the Evasu or just becoming like the Devil Man, he got his power up, right? And then there's the whole story about like the people around him, people that are trying to like basically like influence him in a good way, bad way. Anyway, so I think why Evangelion is so much more significant is because I think at one point you do really like see that in Evangelion, the not the depressing but also the darker undertones. Like I like the angels a lot better than I like the demons, right? Because the angels are crazy, they're like magnificent size, they do some crazy things. They're really able to like destroy a lot of stuff. But then yeah, like once you get towards the end and you start, obviously you have people killing each other, all these different things. Anyways, but yes, but by the time you get to the end, and I know Carlos was kind of looking at me when we were watching the last episode, and it just hit right away. Absolutely, 100%. The last episode of Devilman is like a rip off of Evangelion, the ending, right? And even before then, like when Miki dies and she gets decapitated, there's a scene where they have her decapitated head on a pole, and it looks
Mhm.
just like Rei does when she's like decapitated, kind of like as the bigger astral like person of herself. And yeah, absolutely, the red like bloody sea, it's supposed to, like in this show where everybody's dead at the end, in freaking Evangelion is kind of basically the same thing. And Infinite is the infinite Oh my god, the human project. I totally forgot right now. Spacing out. But anyways, yes.
Instrumentality.
Yeah, and so like, anyways, but the visuals were the same, like you said, like where Asuka and Shinji are sitting there reflecting on the existence of humans and kind of how did they serve to whether they serve to live or not live. It was the exact same thing. So that's the only thing, and that will probably be one of the last bad things I'll say about Devilman was just that was kind of felt like a letdown at the end, only because it was so close. I want to say like maybe like 60% out of like Evangelion, but then again, let's go back.
Well, wait, no,
Eventually, no, eventually, yeah.
because now I sort of realize how to tie it even more to Evangelion, and I'm sorry for anybody that came here for a Devilman Cry review. But if you think about it, Ryo Ramon, he's Kawaru Nagisa. He's one
Yeah.
of the angels.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, and then he has this love for Shinji, and he at the end of it is like will do anything for him. He almost would like he loves
Yeah.
him, and this is very similar. Like Ryo, he loves Akira, and I don't know if you kind of like came to the conclusion of this, but one of the reasons why he puts him in the situation in the first episode is because he wants him to possess the strongest devil possible. Because his whole plan, even though he doesn't realize that he's Satan and he's actually going to bring destruction to this world, his whole plan is like, I love this person so much because he's just so, he's been there in my life. He just brings this other side of me. So I want to give him the power of the strongest devil that has ever existed so that once everything has been possessed by these devils, me and him can live together and enjoy living in the world for the rest of eternity. And we can, him and me, go hand in hand and go fight and defeat God. So that was the whole reason why this whole thing even happened, because he just felt so much love for him. So it's kind of funny that like now, it's this whole Evangelion got me to finally realize like these two characters from Evangelion are actually these two, because it's like you have so many similarities with like they love each other. One of them is an angel, the other one's kind of like fighting against the angel. So it's kind of funny that now we just like in my head that's how I can kind of like say this is even more of a Evangelion kind of like not rip off, because obviously he did it first, but
Oh yeah.
even maybe Evangelion kind of picked up on those things from when the creator first read it.
And it was just more dare. I mean, Devilman is just more daring, right? And that's the whole point that we're talking about this, and the reason why it's like, ooh, like man, should you watch it? I still think you should, but I think it's definitely like watch like with a lot of like kind of speculation
With
that it's going to
caution.
be very a lot of caution and just a lot of speculation that it's going to be something way different. And the first few episodes are a little like crazy, but then after that, it does have a great story. And if you haven't seen Evangelion, you'll probably like it even more. And again, I still like it, but again, it's
Yeah.
just kind of like you're getting so close that you really have to compare, like we ended up doing. But Raul, man, get us back to the show.
No, Ro, maybe I have a question for you that maybe
Yeah.
Ramon, maybe you might be able to time in, but I was asking Ramon this. You know when the brother of what's her
Mickey?
name, Mickey turns into a devil? Like how
Uh,
Oh yeah.
exactly did he turn into a devil? He didn't take any drugs, he didn't party. How did he become in possession of a devil where he was able to become a devilman himself?
so the the thing with that, so I don't know if you noticed, like all the shots of the cat
Yeah.
with the food, and
Yeah.
then there was like never food. I think the brother kept eating all the food because he was always hungry or whatever. Because like what else is the point of showing the cat kind of like trying to claw at the food or whatever?
But are you
So
Um,
since
saying the
so, so,
brother was
so,
always
so
a demon?
yeah, you're
no,
saying that he was
not always, but
always.
I think he could have been because because he was always going on the computer and watching porn. He was always like he became like a
Oh,
fanatic of the devil man or
Oh my
whatever.
goodness.
So like he could have, like I could see him putting himself in a situation where he could have been possessed by a demon, but because of like the whole family pretty much, like I think that could have overcome like the demon to become a devil man. So I think he did that, and then because he was always hungry or whatever, he started eating the cat food too, and then it just kind of kept progressing because he can like fight the urges anymore.
no, I think you're kind of right to that, because even Rio, when he goes on television and he tells people like, "Hey, people are turning into devils, and these people are the people that are upset with society and they're not very happy," and that could be very be the case. It's not that necessarily that he was unhappy with society. It was just that he must have maybe, like to your point, like watching porn, idolizing the devil man, and it could have been that a demon did possess him, but because he was so kind-hearted, he was able. Because I think
Yeah.
that's the whole thing about the show. If you're kind-hearted and you're a good person, you can overpower the demon, and all of a sudden you can take control of them. So that kind of has to be something that I'm gonna have to research on the side row and see if there's some accuracy to that, because that actually kind of pinpoints me in the right direction of why he could have turned into a devil, the little
I,
boy.
I like your answer, Raul, because yeah, I mean, he asked me the question. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't miss it, but I was just we were talking about how like in the beginning they were talking about how like everybody who was turning into demons was at the Savage, right? These crazy raves where everybody's like naked and taking drugs, and we were like, man, he never went there, right? Like how did he become a demon?
Yeah.
And so I think that we just really got stuck on the whole idea of like, yeah, in the beginning it was very much like that, but then yeah, second half of the show people are becoming demons a little bit more just because they're finally out and they know that demons exist. So then other demons are going out and actually turning people into it. So I just thought it happened outside of like the actual show. Like I mean, you didn't see it, but I think your like observations make so much more sense, and I think add to that idea because I was gonna mention that. Like I really like how he was looking up the videos of the Devilman, and it seemed like that was maybe a play on the manga. I don't know, Carlos, like if you know how he looks back then. But I mean it kind of reminded me of that. And then
It looked
yeah.
just like that, yeah.
Okay, there you go. So see, it kind of reminded me. It was like in Mario, in the Mario movie, right? When they're like had the little freaking Jumpman arcade. That's what it was making me think of. Like it was
Yeah.
making me think like it was putting the old Devilman in this show, and I
Yeah.
thought it was smart. But yeah, man, you have a point, and it was beautiful theory. Look it.
Because I guess they also, with the little boy, going back to him, like her brother, it's just like, I was wondering, like, because throughout the whole show, even though it's a very fucked up show, they never really showed anybody like crave blood or crave meat, or all of a sudden like, I'm hungry, so I gotta feed on the dog or my mom because I'm
Yeah.
just hungry. Like they never showed anybody. So to me, that also kind of like caught me off guard, where all of a sudden he's a little boy and he's like all of a sudden like eating his mom because he's craving it. And it could have been that that's always just part of being like a devil man. You get these hunger and urges and you just gotta really suppress them. And maybe because he was a little kid, he was unable to suppress them. But I would have liked to have seen that a little bit more. And I guess maybe in the beginning, some of these demons were kind of like killing people, and maybe that was the point. Like, here, we're not killing him just to hurt him; we're killing him because we have to eat him. So even I kind of maybe insert my own question by looking back at like episode 2 or 3, when that photographer is like hiding in the trash can and doing the
Yeah.
recordings. Like that's kind of like what those devils were doing. They were putting humans in corners and then they were eating them. So yeah, maybe there has always been an urge, but I just wish the show had made it more of a, hey, when you become a devil man, these are the weaknesses that you have to overcome. Because that would have made Akira becoming a devil man even more kind of like, oh yeah, this guy's really impressive, because not only did he do it because he has a kind heart, but he's also able to suppress all these urges. So I would have even admired a little bit more of that explanation to it.
Well, he kind of did though. Like if you do remember, like he started eating a ton, because like his appetite grew or whatever. And then
Yeah.
if you also remember, there was like he was having like dreams, where he was like doing like fucked up shit or whatever, or like sexual things with like random people and stuff like that. So and then you didn't really know whether he really did it or not. Or if it really was a dream. But then if you remember the other demon lady, like
Celine?
they, yeah,
Celine? Yeah.
yeah. Although like they all have like very very strong urges, and it's like super hard for them to like control these urges.
I
So
would have
so
I would have loved to seen a combination of Celine and Devilman, even if, like, Devilman, to me, he looks super cool in his like form. But the idea of maybe if he had absorbed Celine and all of a sudden like that made him even more angelic looking, because Celine kind of did look a little bit like
yeah,
angelic, like that would have been super cool, because they threw that idea like in the very beginning, like Celine's
yeah.
like, I want to find Devilman because we used to be lovers and I need Amon and I need to combine with him so we can be one being. So I would have liked that a lot.
See,
Mhm.
that's another not okay. Not no more negative. No, but I'm saying that's another thing that I
No,
wish the show would have done a little bit more. Is maybe 2 seasons would have been good to expand some of the stories a little bit more, because I think the whole story with Celine was really rushed, right? Like you knew that
Hmm.
she recognized him as being what's his demon name?
Amon,
Amon.
Amon,
Amon.
Amon.
So she recognized him as being him, and I kind of would have liked to see a little bit of that history, right? Even like a 5 minute clip of them in like ancient history or like prehistoric times, like having that relationship that she talks about so much. Because without that, her mentioning it was not like enough for me. Like I was just kind of like, ooh, like I want to see more. I think the only thing that she kind of made me realize is that he loves motorboating. But you know, but besides that, yeah, like that was probably possibly one of the good, like better fights that was had in the show, and that's
Dude,
about
and I
it.
feel sort of bad for that demon that hung out with her that
Oh my
had the
god,
thunder power because he was just put in the friend zone for a very, very long time, and he was just in the friend zone.
he was the
Dude, yeah,
personification of friend zone.
yeah, and that kind of makes me wonder because they also mentioned that the demons don't have hearts or whatever. But then like that demon was like he was in love with her, like he was legit in love, like he like sacrificed his life for her,
Yeah.
and that's not something someone without a heart would
Yeah.
do.
I mean, that's kind of like what Akira was pushing at the very end. All of a sudden, he went from like, I'll kill all the demons to all of a sudden, like, hey guys, demons are our friends. You should, if you see a demon, go and hug him and, ask for his protection. And then all of a sudden, the
No,
other
not
guy comes.
demons.
I mean, in a way, he was kind of saying like stop killing humans because of the idea that they could be demons. Because in reality, if a human does have a demon, but they're devilmans, as he likes
Devilman,
to
yeah.
call them, they're not necessarily for you to like try to kill them. They're actually good, and you
Yeah.
should go to them and hug them and ask them for, hey, can you get my cat from that tree over there? So he
I,
became very pro devilman at the end.
And
Yeah.
that's another part where I thought, like, again, could have used a couple more episodes to really explore that relationship. Oh my god, I think still one of the most graphic, crazy scenes to me is when they were stoning those people
Yeah.
in that plaza, because I'm like, we know, because we've seen enough stuff of, like, movies and other shows where they do similar things. So how significant that is, right? It's like the witch
Yeah.
trials, is where like people are being kind of accused of being something they're not, right? They're not.
Adulterers and
Yeah,
stuff like
it's
that.
Yeah.
Like people being stoned and like
exactly
random other crimes and stuff like that, quote
a
unquote.
100%. But it's like, just because like at that point, like you don't explore that a little bit more. Not saying that scene needed to be longer, but just the whole idea of like more scenes with them speculating humans of possibly being devils, right? That we saw, like, oh my god, like, and I know we did see a few, but it was mostly just people like shooting people and being like, you're a devil,
Yeah.
bam bam. And then besides the scene with the brother and Miki's like family, that was probably the only time that we really got like the few, something that we felt a little bit more emotional about. But that scene was just like, man, I was really, I hated seeing those people getting stoned. And so yeah, when Devilman showed up to kind of stand up there, to me it was just kind of like, man, this could have been so much better if we would have just elongated the scene a little bit more, because to me it was impactful. But I've also seen it in movies, I've seen it in other shows, and I really get that relationship of misunderstanding or kind of falsely accusing somebody of being like something they're not. And then in this case, it's so radical, but again, that's part of it. So I don't know. Yeah, a little rushed.
No,
Or,
like
or
Mickey's.
people just being irrational because of their fear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like when Miki's dad went out looking for
Oh
the
god.
son and the mom, like you could tell that this world has just really, you don't want to be outside at all. Like honestly, like, I don't know how you go about getting your food or getting any kind of like anything, just because people are just pointing guns at each other. There's the other scene with the other Miki was just like running, exercising, and somebody was like, hey, I'm gonna put a gun on you and now I'm gonna do things to you. And it's just like, man, like it kind of sucks, man, because imagine like somebody tells us tomorrow, like, hey, devils exist. Like, what do we do? Like, again, we have to go out for food, we have to go out for water, we got to go for supplies, and it's just like when you go out there, it's like you don't know if you're gonna get killed by a devilman, or now is there just people out there shooting anybody they see. So it's very, very, very chaotic.
But yet, in the midst of all this, people are still checking their social media and seeing what's trending and following
Twitter's
Mickey.
still, for some
Yeah,
reason, happening. Of course,
they're,
Elon Musk would have it running.
they're
Well, dude,
following Mickey and being like, no, no, like you're crazy, like you devil man lover and all this stuff, like
dude, like, and to kind of draw a parallel to like
of
what's
course,
kind of happening right now in real society, like people are like shooting people because they go into their driveway or because they knock on their door, or
Yeah.
like random other shit like that.
road rage
Yeah,
has
yeah,
been happening. Yeah,
yeah, and like all these things kind of happening, and that's kind of what draws me to this show is
Damn.
just like how many parallels there are to like real life society, and like whether it's fanatics, whether it's fear, whether it's like super like religious people, whether it's the like people that are just fucked up people that are like destroying society or whatever it is. It just draws so many parallels, and it just kind of shows a spotlight. And I completely agree that this could have been more drawn out, more developed. And then a lot of the stories, like the sub stories, would have hit harder. But
Yeah.
but
No, no,
it's kind of hard to do, and they try to do a lot in 10 episodes.
no,
Yeah.
you kind of just made me sad, Raul, because everything you said is true. That is like happening right now. And it's just like one of those things, like even to what you said, Ramon, like things are happening, things that maybe 20 years ago, if they had happened, like people would have been like, we need to put this law and we need to do things differently. But like nowadays, like things happen and it's like nobody cares. It's like, okay, let's move on to the next story because that was yesterday's story. And now we need to figure out the next tragedy. And it kind of like sucks, man, that we are living a little bit in this world where things happen all the time and by 7 days later or a day later we're already forgotten about it and nothing gets done. So it's like it's like it freaking sucks, man, honestly.
And
Yeah.
what's more, that's it. And
Oh
what's
no.
more, sorry.
One at a time, gentlemen.
Oh man, this is because we all want to just trash talk society so bad.
No,
No,
no, no. I'll just mention something super quick, and then you can go.
yeah.
Because it also draws a parallel, like on the media, and then how media like either exacerbates or exaggerates or makes some situations like worse, or kind of how all the power that they wield, because they could kind of control the narrative when it comes to certain things.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think going along with that same thing, it's like we don't get it necessarily enough in the full extent in this show. But I mean, like, again, so many movies that have done this, so many movies that are trying to like kind of like speak to these topics and shows and all that. But in reality, it's like, I mean, no matter how much we talk about it and how much we sensationalize it, is the fact that like this is still happening in real life, like you guys said. One of the things that this show kind of becomes a little crazy for me is this kind of my personal religious beliefs, and without really diving into that, one of the things that I was telling Carlos at the end, right, like I don't love that they have a real god in the show. And you know there's a real god in the show, right? Because there's the one person that's dropping all the meteor or the lights and meteors and all this stuff. And because
I think he mentions it too.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a couple of times, but I'm saying like it's not that I don't like that because I don't particularly, I kind of relate 100% to that, but it's more so the idea that now I want to see it. Right, I want to see God in this world because clearly he's powerful in a sense where he's actually interacting with this world, as opposed to like Evangelion or other like shows and movies that we see. It's always like a like bigger force, but people don't refer to like, oh, this god, maybe like Knock on Cabin in the Woods and stuff, where it's kind of like the apocalypse and it is caused by something else, but we're not referring to him in that way. And here we do, so it kind of just makes me want it even more. So bringing back to the whole thing about society, it's kind of the same thing where like, oh man, it's one of those things that people do, when it gets to craziness in the world, like some people fall back to that idea or salvation. And I think this show kind of like briefly explored that too, where it could have been a little bit more, but it was definitely enough for, for you to see that, right? That there was people who were like, instead of being like, oh my God, we're going to be saved, we're going to figure out a way, we're going to work with these people, or we're going to do this. And instead, everybody just went batshit crazy and started killing each other. So it just gives you very little hope for this world.
No, I definitely wish that we would get something with God, Ramon. Because to your point, it's like I do not believe that even though Rio has taken over Earth at the final scene, like I don't believe that he has the manpower or the devil power to all of a sudden go after God. Like I do not believe that for
Yeah.
a second. To me, God in this show seems like a very, very great presence. The only thing that I could believe is that they do mention that when Rio kind of like fell from God's like good favor, like he kind of wandered the universe looking for a planet where he would feel comfortable. So maybe there's this idea behind that God is just so powerful and he's the protector of so many planets that even though he has an idea that Rio could have populated on planet Earth, maybe he kind of like doesn't even know how to find planet Earth, even though we do see that he did an attack on him. And I don't know if that was just by accident, because again, you do this whole thing that God's aware of Rio's presence with what he's doing today, but you don't ever have him come in at the last second and be like, here's my God, my son Jesus, and all of a sudden things are going to go back to normal. Like, no, that never happens. It kind of leaves you a little bit more wanting more, a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I don't know if you guys ever had that comparison at all, but like there was a point where I thought Akira was supposed to be a Jesus figure. Didn't love that idea, but I think it didn't enter my head at one point because I was like, oh, he's supposed to be like the anti-force to like the evil.
My mom wouldn't like that if all of a sudden I'm worshiping a devil and as Jesus.
No, it's exactly. But I think for me, and if you guys seen like, well, you guys have seen my artwork, but even if you guys know the way that I think, I love those juxtapositions, right? I love when you do put like bad and good together, when you put evil and like, well, I guess like good together. But it's the same idea. Like, I was intrigued by the idea that he was a good force, even though he was a devil himself, right? Like he was a demon. And I think that's something that played really beautifully for the show because, again, given that he was like a devil man, it's just you were like, oh man, you technically should be on that side, but you're so good that you're on this side. And that, if anything, shows like kind of the faith that we should have in ourselves and humanity is the fact that we can be good individuals and do our best to kind of basically not fall into those temptations. But man, those
No.
Sabbath parties are pretty tempting.
Yeah. and I mean, just before we do like our final like wrap out thoughts, I do want to say that, we've definitely been doing a lot of cool things lately. Like we just started our YouTube channel. And if you go and see it, I don't know if you're listening on Spotify, podcasts, or however you choose to listen to our show. But if you go on YouTube, we've actually been, Ramon, you've been doing some really cool thumbnails to our episodes. So if you want to check them out, go to the YouTube. And if you want to follow us just to follow us, that would be awesome, man. I would really love it for you guys. We're trying to do everything that we can so that we can reach you guys. I'm even doing a Discord channel that I feel like I'm gonna be adding to our beacons so that people can go in there and start kind of like even chatting with us, saying like things that you might necessarily not want to say to us on Instagram or Twitter for whatever the reason. But guys, we want to hear from you. We want you to give us suggestions. We want to tell us what we're doing wrong, what shows you want us to talk about, what I should be doing with my hair, what Ramon should be doing with his hair, what Raul should be doing with his beard. Ramon has no hair, so there's nothing he can do about it besides wear a wig. But we just want to hear something from you guys. So please tell us that you're out there by you guys been giving us 5 stars and saying that we've been great. But I do want to hear more from you specifically, so I can give you guys shout outs. But
Oh man, well,
let's continue to do our final stuff. We'll go ahead, Ramon.
Well, real quick, let's give a shout out to the people that are listening already, because we definitely have quite a bit of you that are definitely telling me and telling us and sending us messages in some platforms already. And just know that, again, if you're listening, that we really appreciate everything you do. That show love, again, not just for the potential future followers, but everybody that we already have. Really appreciate you guys. But yeah, being said,
The OGs.
The OGs. But no, yeah, that being said, again, I think, again, we came to this with this show with a lot of criticism, at least myself, with a lot of criticism, just because, again, we talked about it. But I think in general, yeah, like maybe it's not the first anime that I would recommend to people. I think that I would say like, oh, if you're curious about it, maybe watch like Evangelion if you want to be more depressed, and it deals with a lot of the same subject matter. But if you want to go for a ride, and you want to see some crazy stuff, and then you want to have some like really simple, like good and evil type of like tropes, like this is still a good show that, again, is really quick. You guys didn't believe me. I was going to finish it in like 4 hours, and man, did I do it in 4 hours. I was like, boom, 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 boom. And I can tell you, especially watching it all at once, it was enjoyable. It was, again, I could have watched the movie version in 4 hours, and I would have sat down for the whole thing. So again, there was something to be said about it. Was still entertaining, not just the first half. It was still really good in a sense of like it had a lot of great ideas, a lot of good visuals, good rapping, a couple cool character designs, and not the best, my favorite animation, but not everyone could be a Demon Slayer.
No, no, and for me, again, I kind of, Ramon, you binged it, you watched this. I'm kind of curious as we do more episodes and we talk about more things, if you're ever gonna like reference like, hey, Devil, going back to like Devilman Cry and kind of referencing either Akira or Ryo. That's gonna be really interesting because for me, again, I feel like if I could put some money, you're gonna sleep on it tonight, and then by the end of tomorrow, you're gonna be like, forget Devilman even ever existed. But I'll be curious to see if it continues to be like a part of the conversation. And I'm really actually, maybe there are people that really love this show, and I want to hear about them. I want them to say like, hey, I'm just like Raul. I'm a freak. I dream about devils. I dream about murder, doing drugs, going to the clubs, and I love Raul. All of a sudden became my favorite one of you guys because he's just so cool and he recommended the show. And that could very well be the case. But again, I don't hate this show. I just think like now all of a sudden like I want to go back to watching like something that's more safe, just because there's just so much
Teen
to
Titans
do.
Go.
Teen Titans Go would actually be so good. Or I recently discovered this animated show with like 3 bears, like a panda, a grizzly, and Ice
Oh
Bear,
yeah,
or
dude, the panda is like awesome. It's
so
hilarious.
so. Anyways, don't go looking for that. But I've been benching
Wait,
this
give
like
me the name. Give us the name. Like us
it's for
listeners don't know.
It's a kids show.
it's a kids show.
So,
I
so
don't
what? Yeah,
I don't
fuck
even
it.
know the name of it. It just might as well call it the Three Bears. But it's so good.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. It's a grizzly bear, like a
A panda
brown bear,
bear, an
and
ice
a panda.
bear. It's polar bear's ice
Oh
bear
no,
for
yeah,
some
yeah,
reason.
yeah,
But you, the listeners, know what I'm talking about. Ro,
yeah.
close us out, man. Close us out. Go ahead, go.
But yeah, like yeah, I'm glad that you guys kind of went on this trip with me
Yeah.
because it's kind of like I mentioned in the beginning. I like things that make you feel things, and then I also like things that have like underlying tones or messages that they're trying to explain, whether they're good or bad. It's kind of like the Midnight Mass or whatever, because
Ooh.
that's like another that has a whole like underlying thing with it.
Oh
And
my god.
yeah, but like with this anime, like I after each episode I could have like talked to you guys to explain each thing. But yeah, like I thank you guys for joining me on this kind of fucked
No,
up adventure.
no, definitely
And
a
thank you
hundred
for
percent.
judging me as well.
100%, Ro, and maybe in the future we're gonna definitely do we're gonna talk about the Bear, the Hulu show, and then we also gonna do a Guardians 3 review. And then now that you mention it, like I would love to do a midnight
Oh,
Midnight Mass.
conversation,
Oh
yes.
like
yeah.
they're in the right period. Maybe next year they're in Easter, but definitely let's keep that in the conversation. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's been great, man. Really glad we did this. This has been Carlos.
Hey, I'll see you guys at the Sabbath.
And I won't be around.